I will say as an artist, sometimes we do have to be in spaces where we make certain judgments about certain things. If we're in a position of leadership and authority, we have to make certain decisions.
You can't get around it, right?
Of course, you have to make certain judgments. But sometimes, and as we see on social media, sometimes we could be a bit too judgmental towards each other and towards ourselves even. And there's a clip of Celine Dion that I saw on Instagram that I just thought it'd be excellent. She was speaking about judgment, and I think as an artist, it's very important for us artists to keep in mind all of the time. Let's just throw to that clip and then we'll begin our discussion. Yes, we do. All right, no problem. That's fine. That was hilarious. Okay.
I apologize, we cannot share the joke. I don't think it would be big of a joke. It wasn't that big of a joke, but the timing was brilliant.
But basically, the clip basically said, you know, let's try not to be too judgmental with what we're doing in terms of our lives don't change just because we said, you know, we disliked the performance or we spoke bad about someone else.
She said it plain. Performers should not be judgmental of other performers, right? And I think the basic premise is true, but there is some room for what you say, because on a professional level, there needs to be some amount of judging,
yes.
Right? Obviously, you go to an audition, you are being judged, right? But I think particularly what Celine Dion was saying was, I'm a singer, you're a singer. We should not be going on social media and saying, oh, well, that performance done by this other person was trash, and they have no talent, and and we publicly mock them, and blah, 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 right? Obviously, in a professional capacity, if you have to, you do so. If you're asked for feedback, you give it, depending on the nature of the relationship.
Right.
A good friend will give more honest feedback. An acquaintance might try to figure out a diplomatic way to not, you know, to not make waves without lying.
Of course.
Right?
Just
but
tiptoeing around the thing, yeah.
But I think I haven't necessarily noticed this. All right. I don't know if you want to go.
We have the clip, so let's go to that.
An artist, a performer, never judge another one. And doesn't mean I don't have opinions, and we all do. But it would have done what for me to say to some friends or family members that I dislike this performance, or I know what it takes to perform and to be on stage and to give our best. Sometimes our best is the 30% of what we have left in us, because we're sick, because it's all that's we have left in us. We give it all. It's not always perfect.
Yeah.
You know what you said there, this is not a serious movie, Big Trouble in Little China. It was a subversion of a modern Western trope-ish take.
Okay.
Kurt Russell played the American. Usually the American saves the day, but he was the bumbling buffoon. Gave in a great performance. The key part with why that links to what Celine Dion said, they apparently had a bad flu the entire shoot. Like the entire shoot, he's there suffering with this horrible flu, and I don't think the conditions are always necessarily like the most comfortable. Right? So you won't know.
Yeah.
Right, and I think there's a lot of situations like that where there are times I think I can't remember, but stage performers, touring performers, you know, they go there. Some, especially in K-pop, there's a lot of criticism coming from the fans because the artists know better than to get themselves in controversy, because over there is very judgmental. The fans are very judgmental. Fans will be quick to say, oh, that was low energy, or this, or that, right? And I do wonder to what extent now, if Celine would have gone further on the issue of, well, what about overly judgmental fans? Because she said, well, I know what it takes. And arguably, performers know what it takes. So if there's anyone qualified to give an opinion on performances, it's performers.
Right.
But not all fans, some fans know. Not all fans know. And they just don't like what they're hearing and want to decry it.
And I think there's a confusion, not a confusion, I think there's a veil line between, there's a vague line between being judgmental and holding people to a certain standard
Right.
and being accountable, right? I think sometimes on the fan level, we tend to be judgmental because, like, no, I expect better from you, or this is what I expect from you. But sometimes we don't always know the best way to. We don't always know the best way to hold them to that standard aside from the words that we use. But we don't always know how to adjust the words. You know, there are certain circumstances that call for, you know, just making certain adjustments for certain circumstances. Now, I will say there was another interview that I saw some time ago. A classical singer, a famous classical singer, she was being interviewed, and the person asked, what would you say to the audience about this big project that you're doing or any performance that you do? And she said, you know, to the audience out there, allow us to play. Give us the elbow room, give us the room and the space, because while we are performing, while we're doing work, you know, it's almost like we're also giving it a sense of play as well, like kids in a sandbox type of thing. So she said, give audience needs to give the performers the room to grow and to do their thing on the stage, because sometimes if it's a hall full of people, if it's a hall full of judgmental people, we are already in a sensitive space on stage, so we are going to feel it. And with feeling it, it may or may not affect, it may affect our performance as well. But one of the points that I also wanted to make is the self-judgment.
Yeah.
As artists, we can be very, very, and just as people in general, we can be very, very hard on ourselves when we are used to growing up around a certain culture. We think there are certain societal norms that we need to achieve. We think there are certain, accomplishments that we need at a certain point in time. Like I deal with this with some students as well. I remember a friend of mine, and I assist him and I guide him. He's in university, and sometimes he gets upset, or sometimes he gets flustered rather, when the learning of the thing does not fit within his expected timeline. Like he expects it to be this way at this point in time, and I'm like, it will work at some points, but it won't work with everything, right?
Yeah.
You're as regardless of, because I mean, I'm a vocalist, but I'm also a pianist and a conductor. For somebody who's a vocalist and not necessarily an instrumentalist, when they are doing the instrument arranging courses, you know, it's very new to them because they're used to working with their voice, with vocals, with in choral music.
Yeah,
they're not used to steel ensemble. It's very different. So having that sort of different experience, is like you're not going, even though it happened for you, let's say in your choral setting or in your solo vocal setting, it won't happen for you as quickly and as well in the instrumental setting.
It goes to, you don't know what you don't know. And what the funny part is, why do you have expectations? You don't know what it is in order to accurately assess expectations.
Right.
But then the other thing, there's an interesting little anecdote. Stuart Copeland of the Police, one of the issues Sting and him had is he does not actually formally organize anything. He just ad-libs his way through everything.
Okay.
So all of his takes was like first or second take,
right.
And I think part of it is when you said, give us room. Mm-hmm. You know, part of it is, it's also knowing how you or other people operate and knowing that not everybody operates the same as you.
Right.
So then now for other performers, it's like, look, your process is not their process. Right. Your learning process, your development process, how you approach the performance, what you key on in the performance. And I think mature performers understand and appreciate that, because they're like, that's what makes it interesting if we collaborate, if we do the same piece, if we do remixes of each other's pieces, right? The difference is we're not the same performer, we're not the same singer, right? But sometimes, a lot of the time when humans want to be judgmental, it's because it's supposed to be this way. Well, who says it's supposed to be that way? A lot of the time it's like, who says you have to mow the lawn from east to west, north to south? Like, what if somebody wants to do it a different way? That works for them, right? Sometimes it might be more efficient their way for them to do it their way. Sometimes they don't care about efficiency. They're more comfortable doing it that way.
Yeah.